Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome, everyone, to the Blacks in Technology BITTechTalk podcast, a show where we talk to Black people who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, change makers, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. The BITTechTalk podcast is where they show how they are stomping the divide by sharing their stories, experiences, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the Bit community. On this episode of the Blacks in Technology BITTechTalk podcast, Greg sits down and speaks with Kellye Dash. Kellye is a technology solutions professional and two-time entrepreneur who has worked in the tech industry for the last 20 years. Kellye also writes posts and articles for LinkedIn, sharing small business insights and information. She's a podcaster and very active in the community, supporting underrepresented individuals and groups towards economic equity and equality. And here is our host for this episode of the BITTechTalk podcast, our founder, Greg Greenlee.
Hey, Kellye, welcome to the show.
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Glad to have you. I know, just to give people a little bit of context and background, you were actually part of, for one, you're a co-organizer of, or on the board of the Central Florida chapter, and you were. How I recognized you or noticed you is you were part of a meetup event that the Central Florida chapter had, and I was really intrigued with your story and what you were talking about, and I was like, I want to get her on a podcast and talk about her journey, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a technologist as well, and I thought your story was fascinating. So happy to have you on here. And so I want to start off with our traditional first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, kind of where you're from, education, those types of things.
Sure. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you again for having me. So I live in the Tampa Bay area, but I am a Philly native. I was born in Philadelphia, and then I moved to Northern Virginia, in Fairfax County. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but
Yeah.
I love that area. It's highly congested and crazy now, but
Yes, it is.
I'm in Florida now, and I do love it. So I started my education actually at George Mason University as an electrical engineer, and life happens, and I had a daughter. So I continued on working. I started working in technology for a company called Intelligent Decisions in Virginia. And when I moved to Florida, I think this was about 1999, I started working for the technology company, and I moved to Florida in 2004, and continued on with the technology journey. But my education, although I started as an electrical engineer, it took many turns, many turns. Business degree, a sociology degree, a public administration degree. So my experience is broad, but I really fell into technology back in the late 90s, and I loved it. And so I kind of stayed in it. I worked for Nextel Communications as well. That's telecommunications, but I worked there for a couple years. And when I moved here, I worked for 3 different managed service providers. And managed service providers are those companies that manage the networks of businesses, small and large, their servers, their networking devices, their PCs,
Right.
all the way down to the end user. So I did that for about 15 plus years,
Wow.
in a variety of roles, relationship management, technical account management, service delivery manager. So I love being a part of the end user experience while
Right.
also being able to learn and understand from a technical perspective. So you were talking about the panel discussion that you know, kind of brought your attention of you know, brought light to my skills, and we
Right.
were talking about non-technical roles in a technical world. And
Right.
I'm not super technical. I think over the years I've become, you know, I can talk to talk, but I'm
Right.
no way an engineer. But I was able to build relationships with the customers and with my
Hmm.
peers that I worked with
Right.
to understand what was going on. And it probably, you know, my sociology degree and just dealing with people, it just kind of came naturally for me.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I want to start my own business. I said, I've been doing this for like 15 years. So I think I want to do this for myself now. So after many, you know, 15 plus years and working in different, always in technology, but for different
Right.
companies, I
Hmm.
really wanted to branch out on my own. And I just said, okay, I'm going to do it.
Pretty interesting journey, and let's not take away anything from, like, because being an engineer myself, like I come across people who are, not so technical, people who are, semi-technical, and people who are hardcore technical, um and I envy those people that can straddle that line, right,
Mhm.
like between business and between the engineering, the technical side of it, because I'm not business savvy, and I'm not as business savvy as I could be. Like, I'm super technical focused, engineering focused,
Right.
and I wish that I had that part. And I've ran into quite a few people, people who are project managers, and some project managers are not as technical, and things like that, but they definitely can talk the talk. They know from a broad standpoint how things connect, how things work. They might not know the steps, the 1 2 3, you do this
Right.
first, second, and third on how to do it, but they definitely know what things are. So I don't, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time I understand, like, you might not be as technical, but there's definitely a tech aspect to things, that to what you do, from a day to day, because you can't you I mean, let's be honest, you can't be not technical at all and get
Right.
away with providing solutions and things like that to people. That wouldn't fly. You'd be all over the place and prescribing things that didn't work and things like that. So
You're right. You're
yeah.
absolutely right about that. I shouldn't discount that because, you know, what the challenges that I encountered, or at least for some of the customers that I had, you know, they're not super technical. So you
Right.
have the engineer come in and talk with them, and they're like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And they get
Right.
frustrated and they say, forget it. Or they make
Mm,
a mistake or they make a decision because they didn't clearly understand what they were, you know, signing up for, and it wasn't best for their business. So
right.
um, I do in my past roles, I would meet with them and understand what um, challenges or their goals were for their company,
Hmm.
and then I would make suggestions and then bring in my solution architects or my engineers to have a deeper conversation. And then
Right.
we would map it out. And I would pay attention to the questions being asked. I would ask for the customer or look at their expressions on their face and be like, okay, tech, you got to slow it down, or let's talk about this again, just to make sure the customer understood. So, really being their
Interesting.
advocate and advisor, not just trying to sell them something. I
Right.
never, you know, I was never commission based for that reason, and I never wanted to be. I am the advocate for the customer. Whatever's best for them is what I'm going to support.
Interesting that you mentioned looking at, body language, expression,
Hmm.
and things like that. Like, there's those are things that, as an engineer, you wouldn't know you wouldn't know to look at, right? Like, I
Right.
wouldn't look at a customer, like, I just, you know I'd be conscious of kind of some of the things that I'm saying, um, but I wouldn't necessarily look at someone's body expression and their facial expressions, and look at them and say, oh, okay, maybe I need to, maybe you don't know what that means. Let me explain it. So, this whole ecosystem, things are so interconnected. Um, and early on, when I started in tech, I was tech.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even with Blacks in Technology, like the organization itself, I was I catered to the engineers, right? And even it, you'll still see a lot of things kind of geared towards engineers. But over the years, I've learned to really kind of understand the need and the necessity of everyone who's not as technical, and the ones who are not technical at all. So if you have marketers, if you have other people that are not on that extremely engineering side, but how to respect them and understand how they fit into this whole ecosystem, and understand that we need them as much as they need us.
Absolutely.
That's something that I definitely want to make sure that people understand. If you're especially if you're a hardcore engineer, don't discount the abilities and the skills of the people who are not as technical as you, because they you're the ones that make the solutions fit together, but they're the ones that make the business actually go right. Like that's how I
Right.
kind of like, right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I valued also the relationships I had with my technical peers too, because
Yeah.
they helped me understand, and I learned from them. I mean, I was no in no way looking to become an engineer, but just to understand the process so
Right.
that I could help qualify and make sure that I understood when I'm talking to the customer what they're talking about, so that when I did approach the engineer again, they understood what I was talking about, and
Right.
it helped cut down on unnecessary discussions and conversations and misunderstandings. So I
Yeah.
valued that, and even more so if I needed them in a pinch, like, hey, 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 Mark, I need you to help me, work through this. It helps
Right.
to have a good relationship with them to, take care of the customer. So I
Right.
valued both sides of the relationship for sure.
And you say you started out as an electrical engineer, like so what made you decide to want to go into that course or that curriculum? Like, did you have any influences, early influences that made you say, hey, I want to look into becoming an electrical engineer?
I always liked really, I don't know, complex things when I was in school. I enjoyed calculus, which is really strange.
You
Probably
enjoyed calculus.
I
Wow.
did. I did. I loved it. It just, I don't know. I have no idea. My brain works oddly. Um, and I don't really know what it was. I took, um, at the time, and like this was 1992.
Hmm.
And at the time, there were not a lot of computer classes either. So
Right.
um, I just leaned towards engineering because they were the most prevalent of the classes and courses that were available. I think I took a Lotus Notes class. E-
Wow. Wow.
Exactly. And that was that was a big deal. So I always had a little bug for that. I enjoyed math, and so I thought electrical engineering was the right path for me, but it wasn't. Do you know why? Because there's a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of like things I don't like, and so I said, okay, I need to find something else. And then I just went on a long, long journey, and finally, uh, I finished my degree at USF here in
Mhm.
Tampa, and I just at that point this was 2007, so mind you, I graduated in 1992, and I didn't get my degree until 2007. So if that tells you anything, perseverance and determination and going back to school,
Yeah.
um, after life challenges
Hey,
and
I'm with you.
all of that,
Yeah.
if it's something that you really want to do, you can do
Yep.
it however long it takes you. So what?
Yeah. I mean, I relate to that so much because I mean, I pretty much had a similar journey. Like, I graduated in 91.
Okay.
I went to a community college right after that.
Hmm.
And I thought, like, this is what I'm going to do right now. because as you said, like, computers in that sense were fairly. I wouldn't say they were brand new, but they were fairly new. Like especially amongst black people. Like
Right. Entertainment, yeah.
so
Mhm, mhm.
so I got out of high school and went to community college here in Cincinnati, and I was well on my way. I was going to classes, and then things happen, life happened,
Yes.
um, and I had my daughter, and like I didn't actually get my degree until like 2011. That's
Isn't
when
it
I
so funny?
finally
I
went back,
know.
and I dibbled and dabbled in odd
That's
end
it.
jobs and a bunch of other stuff, and I didn't really. I had gotten into tech probably like in 2000 ish, like early like 2000, between 2000 and 2003. I got
Yes.
into tech, but I was self taught, right? And I decided back in I was well into my career and everything like that because I started out help desk, then I got a job as a network admin, then as a systems engineer, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to get my degree mainly for myself
Yep.
and for my kids,
Yes.
uh, to show them that it's possible and that this is an avenue. If they want to take this avenue, this is definitely for them as well. Um, and just have something to show and be able to hang up on a wall. But I didn't, same similar journey. Didn't do it
Yes.
until later in life, and I'm happy I did it. It's definitely an accomplishment that I cherish. So yeah, I can relate.
That's very funny that how closely aligned our journeys have been. I mean, I at the end of when I did finally get my degree, I just wanted to get a piece of paper. I was well
Yeah,
into my technical career,
yeah,
and I knew I didn't want to start like from the bottom, going taking all the tech classes and all those things. I was like, I'm already doing what I want to do.
yep,
I just want to get a piece of paper. So at the end
yeah,
of it, it was just give me the piece of paper because it shows I was determined and disciplined and I accomplished something. And to be a
yeah.
role model, I have 3 daughters. So
Nice.
to be a role model for them, to say, even if you go off track, you get back on track and you're not, there's no race against yourself. You do it when it's appropriate for you and,
I
when
like that.
you have the ability. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it. You know, it's it was a long it was really long, but I did it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that because everybody's different and
Mhm.
everybody's journey is different, and what fits someone might not fit the next person, right? So,
Right.
um, excellent, excellent. So you're out of Tampa. What's the tech scene like in Tampa? What's going on in Tampa right now?
I mean, what I mentioned I came from Northern Virginia, and
Right.
I'm stumbling over the right thing to say that in the DC area, it's very diverse and it's a huge, wonderful, Black population of business professionals, Black professionals, which is fantastic. And
Yeah.
they're all over the place. Um, what There are definitely Black technical professionals here in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit harder to find. I'm gonna say find them, but we're not all gathered and together, um, and
Right.
as visible as
Right.
I find in other metropolitan areas. So we have an opportunity here to really showcase the talent that is here. And that's really why I'm a part of, BIT here in this area. Like, we've got the talent and the people, and they're passionate and they're great professionals. We
Mm-hmm.
need to highlight them and we need to, show our community that we're here and we're doing great things.
And that sounds similar to kind of Cincinnati, like where um, there's enough of us here.
Hmm.
The camaraderie here is different, right? It's like it's not. And I say, I'll for example, I remember years ago I went to there was a conference for VMware,
Hmm.
and this is when I was first starting. Blacks in Technology, and so I'm there representing the company that I worked for at the time. But at the same time, I see a black person, as few of us as they were there were. I'd go up to them and I talk there like, hey, I got this community, this online community, blah blah blah, and it was not as welcoming as I would have expected, right? So
Hmm.
I go up to them, I talk to them, and you think like their eyes would light up, and they, oh man, that's fantastic! Wow,
Right.
and it was just like, oh yeah, okay, I'll check it out,
Mm.
right? And
Wait
it
a
was,
little bit.
yeah, and I think it was, I think some of that is because I think the journey in some of these spaces here in Cincinnati is it, it, the journey becomes so tough in a way, right? That when you
Hmm.
get there, you're much more concerned about staying there than you
Yes.
are about anything branching out and
No
reaching
whistles,
back and
please. Yeah, no
yeah,
whistles in
yeah,
my life. Just let me coast. I worked so hard to get here. I just want to like just let me be in
right,
my own space. Don't ask
right,
me to participate or do anything. A little bit, a
yeah,
little bit. Like, and also, Greg, I feel that there's so many organizations that come up and then go down. And so you get
yes, that's
excited
true
about
too.
something, right? I
Yeah,
feel that's more like that. They get excited about
mm,
something and then it's like, oh, but it's hollow
right,
or it's short
yeah.
lived.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I hope that Bit is.
Bit is fantastic
I appreciate that.
for sure. I was
And
really excited about being a part of it, and it's been great for from my own personal experience.
nice,
I try to participate as often as I can, and I have.
right,
Um, and it's exciting, and there's like young and more mature people like me a part of it. So
right, right. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, it's been a long time in the making. Like people talk about like it took me 15 years to become an overnight success, and I'm not trying to
for
say that
sure,
Bit is overnight success by any means or anything like that. We're still up and coming. We're working out things and things like that, but it's nice to finally get to a space. I mean, we're close to 30 chapters now. We have
fantastic.
some amazing people that are leading these chapters, and it's good to see like all that work, because for a long time I did a ton of this work by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's good to see the fruits of the labor like finally start to show itself, right?
That's right.
So
And have
yeah.
people behind it that support it, that are
Oh yeah.
passionate about its success.
Yes, yes.
BIT is always focused on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist the community and our members with their continued professional growth and development. If you'd like to partner with us, send an email, inquiries@blacksandtechnology.net. Do you have a product or service that you would like to share with the BIT audience? Or maybe you'd like to support the BIT community and do your part in helping us with stomping the divide. Start by sponsoring one of our podcasts. Please email us at contactus@blacksandtechnology.net. And now back to the show.
So who did you have as a influence? Like, was there anyone who you had influenced you, or coming up in tech, or
I didn't really, until recently, I didn't really identify, and it's cliche to say, but my mom
Mhm.
was an entrepreneur, and I didn't even really know that until I got older. She was I'm gonna say hustling. I don't know if it. So why I don't know why the word hustling is bad in some circles and good in others, but um,
It's good in this one.
right. Um, I don't know, just she was a single mom also, and she just figured it out, and she started her own business, and she had a telecommunications degree too, and I
Wow,
didn't even
nice.
realize, I don't know. With family and parents, like they're doing their own thing and you want to do your own thing. You don't care what they're doing when you're young.
Right.
You get older, you reflect like, "Oh wow." Subconsciously, I feel that I was something happened, something positive stirred in me, just probably watching her do
Yeah.
her thing, honestly. So I would say her, absolutely. And
Nice.
she's she's really strong and tough. So she's a straight up Philly gal in a gown. Oh,
It's amazing, right? Like, as you become older, you become an adult, you start to really reflect on those influences, and right, you don't understand it more like as they're influencing you
yes.
when you're younger, but you really start to, because I start to hear a lot of my dad in my voice, like right
Mm,
now, where back in the day you were just like, oh man, I hope I'm not like my dad when I grow up. But then when you get older, you're just like, whoo, man, my dad had a lot of influence
that's right.
on me. Uh, it subconsciously,
That's right.
the work ethic, because my dad was a jack of all trades. He could do anything, like, and he worked hard no matter what. Like he worked to make things work out no matter
Mhm.
what he did. And so I see myself in him, or I see him in me, or
Right.
whatever. A lot of that, right?
Yes.
Um, and you don't really start to understand and respect that until you really get older. Then you start to say, "Wow, man!" Like you see how powerful your parents really
I
were.
know. I know. Even
It's
through all the
amazing.
struggle, you think it's just like
Yeah,
struggling and, it's just mess. But then you
yeah,
look back and that was like, that was tough and they worked it out. And
yeah,
I see that. I'm proud to that I have noticed that now. And I'm hoping as my girls get older, they see that in me because, as a parent, you try to grow your own business, you have that guilt. I
yeah,
had school guilt because I had to go back to school, and then I
yeah,
have, like, trying to grow my own business guilt and not having as much time for them as
yeah,
I want, and I have to be really conscious of how I spend my time to
yeah,
make sure
yeah.
that they, feel involved and that, they're important to me.
Yeah, 100%. I have a couple of young ones myself, and I have to be really cognizant to really, make time for them and their activities and things like that because, I work full time. I run and operate Blacks in Technology as well. And being in IT and being an engineer, like it's constant
Yep,
learning. Like
exactly.
it's all the time. Um, so you have to really manage your time well, and you just have to be cognizant that you know there's other people who don't understand at this point
Right,
the sacrifices that you're making, and so because they don't understand, you need to really put aside some time for them because they don't understand.
right.
They don't know that dad is doing this in order to or dad or mom to be able to maintain this status of living in this house and
That's right.
all that stuff. So you have to make quality time. So throughout your career you worked at several companies
Yes.
in a number of different roles. Tell us about some of those roles and kind of what led you or what you learned in those roles and kind of what helped you become this entrepreneur.
Sure, sure. I mean, with the always customer facing, I do enjoy working with people. I think I strongly believe I have a good sense of people and the personalities. My nature, even as a kid, was to make people feel comfortable. Um,
Hmm.
I've tried to work on that because I can't make people feel comfortable. It's
Right.
it's a fine line, but I'm really sensitive to energy and um, vibes from people. So that's just a part of my DNA. So I do enjoy working directly with the customers, and so I would say, the things I learned along the way is, having a positive attitude and being open to learning and understanding and being a Black woman in technology. Um,
Hmm.
it has been um, challenging at times, kind of being present in certain settings
Right.
and projecting your voice and standing your ground really in conversations and making sure that you're heard and that what you're saying is valid and should be considered. And so over time, I've learned to thicken my skin because of that. I don't take things
Mm,
personal. Of course, I get frustrated, but
right.
I don't let things, it's just a part of the environment that I hope that I can slowly change, at least in my little circle,
Right.
to, be if I'm the single Black woman in the networking event, then so be it. Maybe next time there will be two. And just being more present. And I think that thickening of the skin and having a positive attitude are huge attributes that I've learned along the way. And
Right.
showing the initiative. I don't know a lot of the technology that changed. As systems went from on premise to the cloud, that was a huge learning curve for me to understand that and start having
Mm-hmm.
conversations with customers about, okay, you've got this system here, it's a physical box, and you can take it to the cloud, and they're asking questions. Well, what's the cloud? Where's it going? Like, who,
Right.
who who owns the cloud? How can I get it? So taking the initiative to understand that, and honing my communication skills so that I can explain things clearly, as not as frequent as I,
Right.
probably had done in the early days, and just projecting, confidence and knowing what you're talking about.
So for me, being a black man in tech, I recognize that there's privilege there, right?
Right.
So I don't have the same experiences. Like no matter what, yeah, I'm a black man, but I am a man. So there, that in itself provides me some leverage,
Right.
right? So when you with in here, you're a black woman, so there's that intersectionality between being black and also being a woman,
Yes.
um
Extra layer.
that you have to that you have to deal with, right?
Hmm.
So like how what specifically, I know you talked about you have to project yourself a little bit more confidently. Like can you give us some specifics about around things that you've had to say or adjust or in order to be taken seriously by someone who, like, you walk into a room and you sit down and you start explaining, and then you notice this person might have a bewildered look on their face, like, oh, what's going on here?
Hmm.
Like what kind of take us through that a little bit.
Well, I can share, one of the things. I don't know if I picked it up myself or someone told me, but
Hmm.
one piece of advice that I learned to do is when I'm um, at a meeting or an event where we have the opportunity, the audience or participants, to ask a question. I
Right.
always had one question to ask, just one of substance to ask. That one forced me to get comfortable speaking in front of people and
Right.
people, that were in that setting. So I got more comfortable doing that. And two, that people paid attention, that I was bold enough to be one of the few. Not everybody likes getting up asking a bunch of questions. Some do, those,
Right.
those odd individuals. But
Hmm.
being able to stand up and ask one question gets you recognized, like, oh, and if it has to be of substance, don't ask a silly question, but you ask us a question of substance, and people will notice you. And so after the meeting or after the networking event, they're looking at you differently than they were before, where before you were invisible to them. That definitely, if that's anything in any in setting, if you can ask in a meeting of your peers, in a department meeting or whatever it might be, ask one
Hmm.
valid question, that will go a long way, to build your confidence, and then also to be seen and heard.
I
And
definitely agree.
yes, and one other thing, my company name is called Hawk Business Group. for a reason. The hawk symbolizes me because in my past life, I worked for a company, and my responsibilities were to follow back up with the customer. If they're having network issues where they're down, the engineer is head in, head down, trying to fix the issue. So
Right.
I'm the runner communicating, giving that customer updates. And there was a situation where the I said, okay, Mr. Customer, I'll call you back in 2 hours and give you an update, because that's what my engineer told me. I went to
Right.
my engineer at the 1 hour and 59 minutes. I said, okay, what's the update? And he said, I don't have an update for you, Kellye. Like, kind of like, you're annoying me. I was like, well, you told me to come back to you
Yeah.
with an update, and I am going to do that. And I'm responsible for communicating back to my customer. He goes, you are like a hawk, Kellye. You do not let up. You do not let up. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take that as a compliment. Thank you. He didn't mean it.
Right.
He didn't mean it as a compliment, but I took it as a compliment. Thank you. And he gave me that update. I know that much.
Nice. Nice.
So being
So
kind of relentless, being thick-skinned is important, but following up and being accountable to what you tell me you're going to do, that's what the customer expects. You have to follow through.
exactly. And so let's talk a little bit about your business, Hawk Business Group. Um, your technology services firm.
Yes,
For those that don't know what that is, explain to the audience what is a technology services firm.
sure. So Hawk Business Group is a technology services firm that supports customers mostly here in the Tampa Bay area. If they have
Hmm.
satellite offices, if they have remote offices, we do support them in the capacity of maintenance and support of their networking environment. Um, so at the multiple servers, whether it's on premise or to the cloud, their PCs, even their mobile devices, because of course those are like mini PCs. So
Right.
we manage their and monitor their environment proactively on a monthly basis. And we'll provide on-site checks and things like that, just to make sure that their systems are running properly, but then also monitoring them to make sure that they are not at risk or vulnerable to attacks uh, that many other firms and companies are fall victim to.
So you pretty much, your business does everything from managing networks to managing the servers to managing the mobile devices to the PCs to the security aspect of all that, right?
Yes, we monitor the perimeter of their environment,
Mm-hmm.
and we provide patching and updates of their servers and their PCs. If users get locked out, if they their password, if they've changed systems, we do system replacements, of course. If they've got a
Right.
new laptop or desktop, switching those out. Antivirus, making sure that those are installed. A lot of customers are going from Exchange to Office 365,
Right.
or if they're using the Google Suite, we manage that as well for them. Um, only from on the mobile devices, only from the sense whatever is business applications that they need on their systems. We don't like fix their we don't fix cell
Right.
phones.
My
We don't do
screen
that.
is broke.
We don't do that.
Got you. What's up, everyone? We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Blacks in Technology Big Tech Talk podcast. Do you or someone you know have a dope story that they want to share with our Bit audience? Blacks in Technology is seeking guests to be on our podcast. We're looking to highlight the journeys and experiences of Black women and men in the tech industry. So if you know of someone, send them our way. Shoot us an email to contact us at blacksintechnology.net or click on the link in the show notes and fill out our form. We're looking to hear from you. So what made you decide? I mean, I know that you earlier on you were saying that you have this experience as being like customer facing. You work for a number
Hmm.
of different companies. What made you decide to kind of start this business?
I said I am using all of my talents for someone else,
Mm,
and I'm doing exactly what I would do for a firm, another company. And
right,
while I'm not an engineer, I have engineers on my team. So I will initiate. I'm usually the main point of contact anyway to the customer. I handle all the administrative, all the billing. If they need to, the engineers will tell me, hey, Kelly, they need to get a new server next year. Having those conversations with the customer, that's my
right,
responsibility to do. Anything more technical, then I'll bring in one of the engineers. But I've established relationships with customers and partners. When I started my business, I reached out to um, a larger firm, bigger than mine, like tenfold me, and said,
hmm,
"Hey, if I get any customers that are complex that I can't manage myself because I'm small and I'm growing," I said, "Would you take them on and we'll have a partnership agreement between the two of us?"
right,
So I have direct customers, smaller customers that I support, and that means 20 users or less, give or take. And for organizations that need support that are larger, I've I will enter into an agreement with this partnership. So I reached out to the partner. He had never reached out to the owner, who I knew because I've been doing this for a long time. And I said,
right,
hey, this is what I'm trying to do. If they're outside of my wheelhouse, would you support them? And you just pay me a fee every month. He's like, okay, I've never done that before. I said, well, today is a new day. And so we entered in an agreement so that I wouldn't lose out on that type of business while the customer still is being supported. I'm still, being compensated for bringing them an opportunity, and I can still grow. There's no conflict because, they're at a certain threshold
right.
before I would pass them on. So I I'm really take pride in that because the partner never established a relationship like that before, and I knew
Hmm.
that I didn't want to say no to any new business. Say I can't support you, but I have a partnership with this company, and they're still my customer. I still call on them and make sure that they're good, but they're just being managed by someone else.
Wow. How did you get started with that? Like, what was the kind of at that moment where you were like, I'm gonna venture out on my own, and this is how I'm gonna do
I know. I probably got frustrated one day, Greg. I don't even
it.
know. In all honesty, I was working for a company, and I knew it just wasn't a match. It just wasn't a match. I wasn't happy.
Mm,
Like, just the culture was not good for me. And so I said,
right.
I'm going to try to. I was approached by a recruiter um, that gave me an opportunity to work for Price Waterhouse Coopers as an IT business analyst, and I've been working as a contractor since that time. So I'm growing my business today, but I'm also working as a contractor as
Mm,
well because
right.
when you first start your business, it's
Hell yeah.
chug,
Yep.
and COVID kind of slowed, but it's I'm seeing positive movement in the right direction right
Mm,
now. But I said, I'm gonna do this contracting role in Price Waterhouse. It was an amazing, amazing opportunity because it made me say, you know what, they wouldn't have hired me. And I didn't, I stayed on the contract. It was a short-term contract, but it's like I have something to offer. So when that contract ended, that's when I decided to start Hawk Business Group. I said,
uh,
I've got talent. Why do we do that to ourselves? Am I good enough? Can I do this? All that
right.
self-doubt. And I just pulled the trigger. I said, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it.
Nice. Well, kudos to you for pulling that trigger.
I know. I know. It was real. I mean, it's scary. It absolutely is scary. I mean, at that time, I didn't have any other um, uh, contracting gig lined up. I didn't have anything. So it was kind of like 2 feet in.
Right.
But you really got to believe in yourself, and you got to work. It's working harder. You working day and nights and weekends.
Wow. That sacrifice though, like there's that self gratification though, like
Yes,
when you do it right, like you're like, wow, I did this and it feels good and I'm out on my own and yeah.
absolutely.
So working with a lot of these small to medium sized businesses, like what are some of the common technical and I ask this because like just being in a community, like I've run across a number of different businesses that would benefit from having technical expertise on hand, or at least not even on hand, but someone that they can call, or having someone with that expertise that they can talk to get their business to a certain technical level. For instance, a good friend of mine who shall remain nameless. Uh, their parents opened a business. They had several businesses, but they were all in the food industry. They're
Hmm.
all restaurants, and they were located in downtown Cincinnati. And one day, I went in and by the way, their food was ridiculous. It was good. And one day they opened a place right around the corner from where I worked at the time. And I went in and I got lunch. And during that time, they were, accepting credit cards.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah, I got a credit card, handed them my credit card. And they literally took my credit card and put it on one of those machines with a
Uh-oh.
carbon copy. Yeah. And they were
Uh-oh.
and I was just like, what the heck is going on here? Like, are we in 1985?
Are we
Like,
going backwards? What?
why are you using a manual credit card carbon copy?
Uh,
I
like
could
it's
not
not
believe it.
safe. Woof.
And I was just like, that is such a security vulnerability, right? Like somebody could dumpster dive and
That's
grab
it.
all those carbon copies and like usually have no idea. So I know that there are struggles and there's challenges out there that a lot of small businesses face. But what are some of the common ones that you've come across?
I think even as I'm growing my business, some of the things when I'm talking to customers, prospects rather, and they're like, "No, we're good." Um,
Mm,
it's really they don't like change, and it's
wow.
like it's not broken. I'm good. Or I've had a guy who's like 80 years old. He's been doing it for us forever. I'm like, oh God, no. Okay. I mean, what can I say to that? But people
Yeah.
don't like change, and they don't the unknown. And if it's not broken, don't come in here trying to make changes to it. I know it's archaic, but it's working for us. We've got this old 2003 server, but it's still working for us. We're gonna keep it. Like,
Wow.
uh, so it's honestly what I um have been doing. One of the things that I send out with my company is a newsletter. So when
Mm,
people say no, we're not interested, I said, okay, well, would you be interested in our newsletter? I used to send it out every month, but now it's quarterly. And I just, in that, try to share helpful information that they can use in their business. And
right.
what I find helpful is just repeating and being present in their face in a non, you know, without making them feel uncomfortable,
Right.
or that I'm pushing something on them. It's just sharing information. Can I share this with you? Sure. And through that actually happened with the customer of mine that I now have. I was sharing
Mm,
information. One of the things I've put in the newsletter is e-recycling. Do not throw your equipment in the trash. Don't donate it with your hard drives in them. Those need to be shredded. And he listened and he said, Kellye, I reached out to that company. There's an e-recycling company here in Tampa. And we have this pile of stuff we don't know what to do with it. It's like that's a risk by itself.
Yeah.
Just leaving it there. Anybody can come by and pick up like an old PC that has your information on there, things like that. So through my sharing of information, he said, okay, we're ready to make a move.
Wow.
So just
Nice.
being positive, and you understand that they don't like change, but if you can slowly seep, drip
Yeah.
information to them, that's all I can do. I can't force anyone. I can just continue to share and be positive and say, when you're ready, we're here.
And you know that what's so great about what you just said is like, so I'm a DevOps engineer, and that's like one of the I wouldn't say it's the one of the tenets of DevOps, but it's um how we enact or bring in change to an organization, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, people talk about it all the time. Change, culture change, whatever, is kind of one of the hardest things to enact in any organization, any company, anywhere really. Not just a company or organization, but enacting change anywhere is difficult, right?
Right,
And so you do these small things to kind of show more of a proof of concept type of thing, right?
right.
And then you get buy-in from people, and that's kind of when you make that sell, so to speak, right? Like
Hmm.
and what you just said just really hit the nail on the head. Like, you send out these newsletters, and you just let them know a little bit of this information, things that'll help them out in their business along the way,
Hmm.
and then they bite on it, and then you're like, okay, now they come to you and they say, now I'm ready. I now have seen the light, so to speak, right?
That's right.
Uh, and then they're ready to kind of give in to what you were talking about, and yeah, so I see a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things too is that they want
Mhm.
to, especially as a new business, like, what do you have to show for yourself? Like, okay, I hear you. Actually, someone reached out to me just last week and said, hey, I just started a business. I'm like, okay. And I want to collaborate with you. I'm like, okay. Where's your, it's like, where's your website? Oh, I'm still working on that. I'm like, okay, well, you gotta come up. You gotta do
Yeah,
you got some more work. So I left it open. I said, okay, well, when you have your website, we can have another conversation, and then it'll probably be something else that has to be, established and built. But
right.
I learned, that you have to show you have to show that you're, I won't say an expert, but you have to show that you come with knowledge and skill. And
Yeah,
I do that personally through like the podcast that we're having here. But then I write LinkedIn articles,
yeah,
and the newsletter helps. I'm on social media, and actually right before COVID hit, I was going to offer a business workshop for people who wanted to start their own business straight from their home. Like, here are
nice.
the basic things that you need to get started. If you want to start a business from home, these are the things you should do, free and at a nominal cost to get
Mm,
started.
nice.
You have to bring value for them to say, okay, I'm
Yeah,
listening.
and that's a good segue into the next question that
Hmm.
I have. What do you think are some of the things that has made you a successful entrepreneur?
I would really say establishing quality relationships and having a positive attitude, and
Mm,
having a reputation where if you are not in the room, someone talks about you in a
mhm.
positive way.
Nice. I like
I
that.
was there was a just today actually, a Black girls in tech summit, and they were doing a speed networking through Zoom. I'm not sure, Hopin. They were using Hopin, and I was talking to the young lady who just graduated from college, and she was asking me those same questions. It was like, do not burn bridges. If you're interested in something, if you're interested in what this other peer is doing, go and
Right.
talk with them, like develop a friendship with them, and, establish those relationships. Because even for me, I started my business, I was able to rekindle my past relationships that helped me get started in my business. So if I had
Right.
a nasty attitude, if I didn't have any, skills or anything of value, even the partnership, they wouldn't want to work with me.
Yeah.
So relationships matter. as small as you think that they might be, as short lived as you think they might be. I'm always looking to connect on LinkedIn for those reasons. If I can help someone,
Hmm.
like say, hey, I have someone in my circle who might be a person, and I just connect them. It's like I step back. Oh, I might know someone. I'll just connect you. You all handle it from there. I don't want to be involved, but at least I'll make the connection.
Right.
What you do from that point is on you, right?
Right. Right. Excellent. Excellent. So you write articles. Speaking of LinkedIn and writing and blogging, you write articles where you share small business insights, info. Like, what made you want to start getting into writing?
We like the US is so amazing in that way that we have all these different avenues to share what we know. And no one, I wish people well, actually, maybe not because it'd probably be really flooded, but LinkedIn provides an opportunity for us to be authors and experts in what we're talking about. And I wanted to just have myself out there to be, again, if someone looked me up, that they would find quality information of value that could help them or someone that they know. And it's just another platform. I mean, we're all inundated with, the social media, Facebook, and all those places. But really, like the article writing is my own, are my own words that I can share with people in a professional way, not just a picture with a little quote or something like that, which is nothing wrong with that because there's different audiences who those types of things resonate with.
Right.
So it's just another free way to promote myself as someone of, with some knowledge.
Hmm.
That's
Excellent.
it.
Excellent. Yeah. And I mean, and you know, I definitely agree with everything you said. There's a gentleman. His name is Scott Hanselman. He's a developer. He works for Microsoft, and he says something along the lines of, "If you, uh, let me remember. Basically, if you do something, let's just say, for instance, you're a person who is just getting into technology, or no, or even if you're in technology and you're learning something new, document it and then blog about it,
Right.
because not only is that going to help you to learn it a lot better, because once you can explain it to someone,
Absolutely.
that means you know it even better, right?
That's right.
um, and but that also allows you to have that content as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So those are, in even there's some work involved with getting it to that point and things like that. But if you are looking to learn something and you can write about it, you can blog about it, or you can even do writing. I mean, you can blog about it, you can YouTube it as well. You can, that just provides that much more content for you to be able to have. And then not only are people looking at you now as an expert in that specific topic that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also helping yourself learn that topic a lot more.
That's right. And that reminds me, actually, I just reposted an article that I wrote last year because here there was a law firm who got hacked. And it
Mm.
was the user clicked on something that they shouldn't have in their email, and their
Uh-oh.
contact database was shared, and spam phishing attempt was was dispersed
Right.
to all their contacts. So it was like a rippling effect.
Mm.
And so I last year I wrote an article about 8 tips to look out for to avoid email spam, email phishing. And it
Mm.
talks about different things like, hover over the hyperlink to see where is that coming from.
Right.
Don't click on things. Don't open attachments from things you're not expecting. So I went through like 8 things, and I just sent it out again the other day just as a reminder and said, hey, this happened. It's really big in the community here. So I didn't name drop, but I said, this is why you have to have your employees go through security awareness training.
Yeah.
and, remind them not to click on things, because as innocent, they've got the firewall in place, they've got the antivirus, all that stuff. Nothing's 100%, right?
Yeah.
One thing
Yeah.
came through and it was an inside user who caused the issue, an embarrassing issue at that.
And as you already know, like the insiders are sometimes more of a problem
That's
than the
right.
outsiders are. And
That's
on
right.
top of that, like this, we're in an age right now, this current environment of COVID, and like scams are at an all-time high with COVID, because
Absolutely. Because
people
everything's
are.
online now,
Yeah.
everything's remote online, so you're
Yep.
expecting to get emails and all of these things now, where before it wasn't as heavy because you're meeting in
Right.
person. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So you also, in speaking more about content and content
Hmm.
creation, you also host a podcast targeted
Yes,
towards small business called the Business Blend. So
yes.
tell us a little bit about that. What was the motivation behind that? Like, what's the show about? Give us all the goodies about that.
Well, I can't sit still. That's basically why that's what came to me. I
You and
can't
me
sit
both.
still. I wanted to, again, just to have another platform to just share my voice. I don't know if there was something that kind of triggered it, but it's like, podcasting, it's a small little cost to, invest in it for the podcast hosting, but it's like,
Right.
this might be a cool thing. Other people are doing it. Why can't I do it? That,
Right.
that was kind of my mentality. It's like, well, why not? Let me try it. If, one person listens, it's fine. Um, I wanted to provide a space for people, small businesses like mine,
Hmm.
to share their small business journey, to encourage others, to inspire others, to say you're not alone. Um, and so I invite small business owners on to talk about their business, how they got started, what struggles they had, how they market their business,
Right.
any advice that they would share with someone else in the same industry, or just broadly. Like, what would you share? And also resources. I invited resources on to talk about how to best use LinkedIn for your business, things like
Mm.
that. Um,
Right.
just to support the small business environment, because I feel I the more I could get, because I was so excited to start my business, the more opportunities that I could learn. It's like, okay, there's a podcast that talks about small business. There's a YouTube that talks about small business. I wanted
Right.
all things. So
Mm.
I wanted to create that kind of platform to share what I was experiencing and what others were experiencing.
Nice, nice. And the cool part about that whole thing, what I've learned from podcasting for all these years is that you learn something as well as well,
That's
having
right.
all these knowledgeable guests on.
I tell you, and I often said too, I was like, I'll be picking up that tip. Like, well, I need to call you on that.
Right, right. It's funny because I watch what is diners, drive-ins, and dives, a cooking
Yes,
show
yes,
with Guy Fieri, and it's funny because he does that all the time. Like he'll go into a restaurant, he'll see like a recipe, and he'll tell them right there, I'm using that, by the way. Like that'll be on my menu
that's
in
right.
one of my restaurants.
Whatever, that's it's absolutely true. And
Yeah.
I used a lot. I had a small business attorney on my podcast, so
Mm,
I was asking questions for the audience, but also for myself.
right, right. Exactly. So how can people tune into that podcast, and then tell us a little bit about if
Yeah,
there's someone who wants to be a guest, how do they do that?
for sure. Yeah. So since I took a small hiatus, but I'm coming back now. But I'm on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. That's where you can find
Nice.
the podcast.
Hmm.
And so those four spaces. And I do have a Google survey that I send out, asking questions like, what's your industry, what would you like to talk about, just so I can make sure that it is the conversation and an interview is of value for my small business audience.
Mm,
So
excellent,
I will
excellent.
share that with you. Yes, I do have a link for that, for
Yeah,
interested
definitely.
parties to complete. Yes.
Okay. Something interesting I read in your bio. Um, I think it was in your bio. Maybe it was somewhere else where I was doing some research. But
Hmm.
anyhow, you said something about early on as a young parent. I was only focused on success and what I thought it looked like. Being happy was an afterthought. As I've
Hmm.
gotten older and wiser, I've now realized it is more important to be happy first. And with all the things that I mentioned, success will follow.
Yes.
Explain to me what, because I totally relate to that. But explain to me what you mean. How did you come to that realization?
I think because I was a young parent, I was focused on I got to get a job, I got to get money,
Mm,
I got to do these things that my parents want me to do,
yeah.
and I didn't focus on what do I like? What do I want to do? Because you close your eyes and you open your eyes and it's 20 years later,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I don't honestly, I don't think that you can understand that or appreciate that until you get older because you're young. You're like, I got plenty of time. I'm supposed to work this hard. Like, no, you don't have to. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that hard, but you're dealt the hand you're dealt. But I share with people, just and even with my girls, I want you to do what you love to do. I want you to, be prepared, um, and confident and driven with whatever you do. I don't want you to be a slacker, but I don't want you to be a happy slacker. I want you to be happy, productive member of society. So what do you want to do? And even with my oldest, graduating with college, like she didn't know what she wanted to do when she first started college, which is fine, no pressure. I didn't know either, and she found her way, and just it should happen naturally, but be prepared and be disciplined so that you're ready for that course and know that that's what you want to do and be happy
Mhm.
with it. I want you to be happy. I want to be happy. Now that I look back on things, like I could have done some things a little bit differently,
Yeah.
so I'm a little bit more adamant about my girls kind of like, what do you like to do? When I ask them the question about what they want, going into college, what do you enjoy? And that's how I start the conversation.
Excellent. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Like my firstborn is a woman. She kind of she took the long way around, so to speak, in some aspects. And finding her footing and what she wants to do. And she's super intelligent, way more intelligent and aware, knowledgeable than I ever was at that age.
I
It's
know. That's what we
amazing.
hope for.
Right, right. But and one of the things that I always try to uh, drive into her early on is to do these things early so that later on, like you can
Hmm.
relax a little more. Uh, but she took her own path and she's doing her own thing, and it's just amazing, from a parental standpoint to see that all come to fruition
Yes.
and see them finding their way and doing what they love to do and things like that. So I definitely can relate to that.
Yes.
So what's next for you?
Oh, wow.
You're
Well,
doing like you're doing like 2010 things.
I know, I know. And that's just my nature. I don't know. I just can't keep still. Well, it's really going to bring back. I took a hiatus. I mentioned that before. The podcast. I took a little bit of a hiatus because I wasn't. I wanted to change it up a little bit.
Mhm.
And that was my first kind of experience getting involved. So I know in retrospect, I don't want to hear it. I was a little stiff. So, and more, I was more careful about the things, how I said things. And so I said, I need to take a step back. I need to be more me.
Mm,
And so I need to, let me just take a break, unplug, just like with the unplugging a computer, plug it
yeah.
back in and just restart. And so that's what I'm doing with the podcast. So that'll be coming up. And I do want to create a couple like free and small paid little ebooks on how to
Nice.
get started in business. I have a couple ideas that I want to do and just to offer out for people. So that's next
Well,
on the
I'm
immediate
gonna
horizon.
I'm gonna say this.
Tell me.
I sucked when I started my podcast. If you listen to any of the early podcasts, they are horrible. As a matter of fact, don't listen to the early podcasts. Start from like episode 50.
Right?
They were horrible, but you get better.
I
You
know.
this period that you've taken to kind of step back, and it's going to help because you start to learn who you want to be in these
Yes.
podcasts.
Yes.
And for me, for instance, I know, and early on, I'm everyone has this fear of public speaking,
Yes.
and everyone's not great at public speaking. But I used to be in the music. So you would think that I would have like an advantage somehow of being in the music. I've been on stage in front of tons of people and doing and performing and things, but it's not that. It's a totally different. So you have to step back and you have to say, okay, for me, it's like, what take some of
Mhm.
that performance from, when you used to do music, bring that to your podcast. Bring that some of that
Yes.
personality to your
Be
podcast because that's
you.
what people want to hear. They want to
Yeah.
hear authentic you. They don't want to hear stuffy you. They don't want to hear scripted you.
Nope.
They want to hear you.
They do not. They do
Yeah,
not. Yes, and that's not authentic. And
exactly.
I want to I want it to be perfect. And so those early episodes, whew, but
Don't
I
worry
get
about it.
better.
Yeah, you're going to get better. There was something else I was going to say, but I kind of forgot where I was going. But yeah, definitely for the podcast,
Hmm. Probably
you're
one of the
definitely.
other things too, Greg, I wanted to mention.
Mhm.
I want to start mentoring like young women in high
Yeah,
school and college, like getting out of high school, getting out of college, and sharing things that I experienced and that just helpful information. Because you go out if they want to get into tech, whatever it might be, like out even just from a personality or an action
yeah.
effort perspective, just share, just share.
That sounds like a good program for Bit too.
Yes,
You can see your
really.
hand. But
Honestly, Greg, that's a good idea.
yeah, but that did make me remember what else I was going to say.
Hmm.
Um, you talked about your ebooks, and I always say this before during the podcast before we jump off.
Hmm.
Once you get that going, let me know
Oh,
because one of the things that I want to do or I like to do is promote what people in our community are doing.
great.
And Blacks in Technology has a nice network. And if you're doing that, like, I love to promote what you're doing because it benefits us as a community. And
Thank you.
it's going to be. I want it to benefit you as well,
For
right?
sure.
So let me know once you get that ebook
Okay.
in whatever format, however you want to put it out there. Let me know, um,
Great.
because it's a win-win for me, right? Like, it's content for the Blacks in Technology site. I'm helping out a fellow Bit member,
That's right.
Bit chapter leader, and then it helps you as well. So that I always let people know that we're here to promote and highlight the goodness that comes out of our community, and
Yes,
that's exactly what I want to offer to you as well.
I
So
appreciate that. Yes, thank you very
no
much
problem,
so.
you're welcome. So before we get out of here, how can people learn more about you, your business, how to follow you? Give us all that good stuff.
Okay, well, my last name is Dash. So if anyone wants to email me, they can at K, my initial K, last name is DASH, at hawk, B is a boy, G is in girl.com, hawkbg.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram. I have a YouTube too, and then the podcast, The Business Blend.
And what about the URLs for the business in case anyone needs your services?
For sure, it's hawkbg.com. And they can
Excellent.
always call me also. Yeah, 813-862-1808.
Nice. Well, Kellye, I definitely want to say, thanks for being a guest. Thanks for dropping some knowledge for our audience and our listeners. We wish you the best of success and luck. And thank you for taking the initiative, for being an organizer of the BIT Tampa, the BIT Central Florida chapter.
Absolutely.
Lots of great things coming out of that chapter. Shout out to Jesus
Yes.
for doing this thing as well.
He's helpful.
And we appreciate it, and we look forward to what you're going to bring to the community in the future.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be a part of this organization and a part of this community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology. Blacks in Technology.